Original GM classic car power windows were produced with a common ground motor. What this means is the motor housing is the ground, and the two wire leads on the motor are hot wires. One of them for up, and the other for down. Auto City Classic sells classic power window kits with this style motor. We often get calls for replacement motors for an original power window kit, or when motors are no longer working. But how do you know if it's your motor that is causing problems? Testing the motor is easy. Using a standard automotive battery, connect the negative terminal to the body of the motor. Then take the positive wire and place it on one wire terminal, and the motor should turn in one direction. Switch to the other wire terminal, and the motor should go in the opposite direction. When testing a motor that is not attached to a regulator, be sure to hold the gear in place so that it doesn't fall out and get damaged. If the motor turns in each direction and is strong, the motor is good, and most likely you have a grounding issue. The ground can fail in many locations: between the motor and the regulator in the door or quarter, or between the door and the car. One other place the ground can fail is directly from the manufacturer. Notice here the copper wire coming out of the motor housing. This copper wire is a ground to one of the brushes inside the motor. We have found some motors where the manufacturers have not removed the paint between the copper wire and the motor housing. If you see this could be a problem, simply loosen the 3 bolts at the end of the motor and slightly split the 2 motor housing pieces and move the wire to an area where the paint has been removed, or remove some paint and then tighten it back together. If all looks good and the motor test went well, you might just need to run a dedicated ground wire from the motor housing directly to your car body to a place where you can make a solid ground to solve the problem. This installer installed a dedicated ground wire to the door of his 70 to 72A body and then ran the wire through the conduit and attached it to the kick panel area to make a solid ground. As you can see, this solved his grounding issue. One thing we hear from customers is that the motors are fast. While this is true, there is one adjustment that can be carefully made to slow the motor down. Using a 1/2-inch wrench and a flathead screwdriver, you can loosen the nut on the end of the motor and slightly tighten the set screw, putting a little pressure on the motor, slowing it down. But there is a trade-off. You are making the motor work harder, and this could cause the motor to fail, so only slight pressure can be safely put on the motor.